Hello chess lovers, Suren here with another interesting game for you. With the white piece is playing the 8th world chess champion Mikhail and his opponent is German chess grandmaster Burkhard Malich. This game was played in 1974 in Halle, which is a city in Germany. Now let's see how the game went on. Tal started the game with e4 and c5 by Malich. Black goes for one of the most popular openings of our time, Sicilian defense. Knight f3, e6, d4, c takes d4, knight takes d4, knight f6, knight c3, and d6. Black is choosing the Scheveningen variation. It is thought that this variation first appeared on the tournament scene in Scheveningen in 1923 and came into fashion 10 years later. As Mikhail was a very aggressive attacking player, in this position he played g4 and went for Keres attack. With his last move, Tal is choosing one of the most dangerous lines named after Grandmaster Paul Keres. This move takes advantage of the fact that e6 cuts off the black bishop's control of g4 and plans to force the knight on f6, black's only developed piece, to retreat and force black into passivity. a6, now comes g5, knight d7, bishop g2, knight c6, h4, queen c7, h5. These pawns are already reaching their enemies and this is going to be a very tense battle. Knight e5. Not a good move. Instead of playing knight e5, it was better to proceed with the development. But instead we see knight e5, which allows Mikhail to play f4 with a tempo attacking black knight. Knight takes d4 was played, queen takes d4, knight c6, queen f2, b5. Black will try to counterattack on the queen side, bishop e3, rook b8. Actually, black is planning to play knight a5 and with his last move is acting against any possible bishop b6 moves. And also the rook will support his pawn on b file. White castled queen side, knight a5, e5. Tal wants to rip open the center of the board and target black king, and d5. Black is trying to keep the center closed. And in this position, Mikhail went for a very risky decision. He captured on d5 with a bishop. In his book Life and Games of Mikhail Tal writes, "Although I was perfectly well aware that it was an unnecessary move and not the best, I sacrificed the bishop so as to cheer myself up. A clean continuation of the attack would be either king b1 or knight e2, or possibly the strongest is g6. But the interesting thing is that after I analyzed this position with Stockfish 9, Stockfish 9 refuted all those moves suggested by Mikhail and suggested f5 as a first choice, and even as a second choice suggested rook takes d5. This is a devastating sacrifice, after which white is actually managing to gain a huge advantage. I'm actually surprised that Tal missed this move both during a game and also during the analysis. Now if a move like e takes d5, then white knight will join the attack. If, for example, queen d7, then this time rook d1. If knight c4, then h6. If bishop b7, then white can capture on g7, and then knight f6 check, it's over, white is winning. Or after knight takes d5, if move like queen c4, then white can first kick away black queen and then play h6, again with the same knight f6 threat. This time the bishop will attack black queen. If bishop d7, then h takes g7 followed by knight f6 check, again the game is over. That's why after rook takes d5, black should respond with b4, although in this case white can play rook d1. The threat is rook d8 check. For example, if b takes c3, then rook d8 check, and then after the exchange on d8, white can go for bishop b6 fork. Again, this is going to be winning. Let's go back. After rook takes d5, b4, rook d1. That's why black should play bishop e7, covering the d8 square. Then in this case, white can play rook d3. If b takes c3, then rook takes c3. If knight c4, then queen e2, white will win this knight, and actually white has a won position. White has two extra pawns and also a very dangerous attack. But Mikhail missed his chance and after d5 captured on d5 with a bishop. b4. Of course, capturing on d5 is not a good idea because white can activate his knight by playing knight takes d5 and then play f5, and actually white has a very dangerous attack. That's why after bishop takes d5, black first attacked white knight, and after knight e4 only then accepted the piece sacrifice. Knight takes d6 check, bishop takes d6, e takes d6, queen c6. Of course, capturing on d6 is not a good idea because in that case white can open up the e file with a tempo by playing bishop c5, attacking black queen, and then this rook can join the attack, and this can be terrible for black. That's why after e takes d6, queen c6 was played. f5. Tal is a piece down, but he proceeds with the attack, and finally black castles kingside. Now comes f6, but in return black played b3, counter-attacking on the queen side. A takes b3, knight takes b3 check, king b1, queen a4. Instead of playing queen a4, actually queen b5 could create problems for white with knight d2 threats. But instead we see queen a4. Right now there is a mating threat. Black is also playing very aggressively and is sacrificing the knight. Tal is accepting the sacrifice. Queen e4 check, king a2, rook b5. Right now there is a very dangerous mating threat. That's why Tal played bishop c5 in order to cover his king in case rook a5. Now comes d4 and queen takes d4. Instead of queen takes d4, f takes g7 could have created problems for black, and this is going to be actually a very problematic line for black. But instead, after d4, queen takes d4 was played. Queen c2 with double attacks, queen c4, and we see the exchange of queens on c4 square, and after rook takes c5, d7, Tal is forcing black to give up his bishop, otherwise d8 was the threat. Bishop takes d7, rook takes d7, rook takes c4, and we have an equal rook endgame, and there is not much the players can do. Let's just quickly go through this endgame and see how the game ended. Rook c5 check, king d2 a5, b3, rook g5, king c3, rook c8 check, king b2, and after rook c5 the players agreed to a draw. It's a pity that Tal missed that brilliant rook takes d5 move, but he cheered him up with bishop takes d5, although he didn't manage to gain advantage, and finally the game ended up in a draw. What is interesting, at the end of the tournament this game was awarded a special prize by the magazine Schach. Thanks for watching, I hope that you enjoyed this game. For more games, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. I will see you in the next video.